What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? I am Snickers. He is Meat Snack. This is Snick Snack Sports, bringing you the Mansfield Penn State Fantasy Football Podcast. How are you doing today, Nate?
It's a wonderful evening, Snickers. How are you?
It is a wonderful evening, a wonderful life.
And this week, we're coming at you post-week 3. It was an excellent week of football, and so we're going to give you the recap. We've got Ducky on the show, currently our 12th place player. We will be discussing the upcoming week. We'll be discussing the status of our bet, which is going very swimmingly for me as a sneak preview. And let's get into it. Here we go. Let's look at our weekly recap. All right, Nick, why don't we take a look at the standings for this week? There's been some things moving around. Things went favorably for some, went less favorably for others, including myself. And here we are. So if we pan over here, we can see that, in fact, spoiler alert, Kyle did beat me this week. And we also saw that Kyler was victorious. So they're the only 3-0 people left in the league. But we also have other playoff contenders at the moment. We have Matt in 3rd, Nick Adams in 4th. We have Kenny up there in 5th after a terrible week 1, and then you there in 6th, Nick.
Yeah, no, it's great to see a couple kind of relative newbies to being well in this league, like Kenny in the top 6 here. He's 2-1. Nick Adams obviously has been good recently, but historically him and then Kyle obviously very excited for still, even though I'm playing him this week, is 3-0. It's pretty exciting. But right after the 2-1s come the 1-2s, which are slightly disappointing. I know it's only week 3, but there's Shane. You're in 8th place at 1-2. Katie's 1-2, and then John got a win in the trash bowl last week against Ducky. Then Carson paved the way for Chris Olave, still 0-3.
Yeah, I think it's funny that even though Carson is behind John, they still have no faith in John's roster. Have Carson a much favorite to make the playoffs over John.
Yeah, I mean, he still needs to put Pity City back in his lineup, it looks like. But we'll see exactly how that turns out. I hope a couple of them get a couple more wins, as long as they're not against me, right?
Yeah, and no, we tried to identify an upset every week, and this week it really wasn't a lot of upsets. Kenny did beat Katie, and going into the week, I think we both felt like Katie was the stronger team. However, Kenny has actually established himself more as a pretty strong player. If we look at the points scored here, he's had a huge rebound. I think scoring above 100 points in both of his last few weeks after scoring like 70 the first week. And Katie's down there at 275. That's less than 100 points a week. So, but we can see kind of that me and Shane both are actually playing under our projection right now. 330, 333, even though we're in that low tier, I think we're going to pop back up.
Yeah, you and Shane both have had pretty tough schedules at the start of the year so far. Here's knocking on wood that Ducky and Carson have had hard schedules too so far, and it's just not just that their team isn't as good as they wish they were.
Yeah, let's dig into some of the matchups this week. I'll go first because it always starts with mine. And I was playing Kyle. I thought it was a big match. He ended up kind of blowing me away here, unfortunately. It came down to the Steelers really did not perform for me on Thursday night. Did not look good against the Browns. And then Freiermuth almost ghosted me. He ended up pulling out like 2 catches at the very end of the game. Rashad Bateman was playing absentee wide receiver for a little while there. And DeAndre Swift hurt himself at the beginning of the game. I think that kind of took me out of it because Kyle has had an average week. I mean, he didn't have A.J. Dillon come through. He didn't have Tyreek come through, but Josh Allen's always going to get the job done, it seems like. No huge benchings, although I am surprised that Tyler Lockett is still competing on my bench there. I have not had the balls to play him, and maybe I should. We'll see.
Hey, he's a good player. You got a lot of good old guys in your bench right now.
Now, why don't you tell us what was going on with the hipster fantasy player Shane and his loss to mid-tier Nick?
Yeah, 2 slightly surprising losses for Shane in a row here. Obviously, his running back room is very good. Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley, even though Dalvin left with the injury, he still was able to get 13 points in the win against the Lions. George Kittle, he keeps playing him, even though he's been very, very injured. Same thing with Michael Thomas. Jalen Waddle's obviously a stud, as well as A.J. Brown. But yeah, the big story, Nick Adams, Christian McCaffrey, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Russell Gage in that slot fest. Did you watch that game, the Bucks and the Packers last week?
Unfortunately, I did. It might have been one of the worst games I've seen in a while until I saw the game right after it on Sunday night, which was even uglier.
That's true. There's nothing going on, but Russell Gage did get a decent amount of touches, basically because there was no one else to throw to. But yeah, Nick Adams pulling out another win. It's 2-1. It's pretty exciting to see.
Yeah, what really hurt, actually, I mean, it didn't totally end his game, but he lost 6 points for playing the Chargers. That was unexpected.
Yeah, that was very exciting. I didn't watch the full game, but the Jaguars beating anyone, especially blowing them out, is always very exciting.
Absolutely. And then we had Kenny destroying Katie 133-75, which boosted him up to 5th place, knocked her down to 9th. And we can see that who was coming through for him. It was the running backs this week. Derrick Henry and Zeke both turned it around. We'll see if those are both sustainable. Adam Thielen turned it around. Mark Andrews continues to be great. And so his team all of a sudden is looking a lot better than it was a few weeks ago, just with some of the tide shifting here. And Katie's team is looking really thin, especially when her Aaron Jones and Austin Eckler are not coming through for her. And then Amari Cooper on the bench, that had to hurt, but it would not have saved her day.
Right. Yeah, I think Austin Eckler got something like 3 touches in that game last week, which is just very surprising. But
yeah, I don't know what's going on with that team. They need to fix some things. How about here? You actually scored less than me, and you came out with the win.
I did. I didn't have a great week. Lamar Jackson was going up against my defense again and was doing some damage. Luckily, got away with a decent amount of points. Jonathan Taylor had a slightly bounce back week. Drake London was one of the best receivers last week for rookies. But yeah, my team overall is not looking great. I did have Khalil Herbert on the bench, who is currently in my lineup, scoring about 32 points. So that was very exciting. Did beat Carson. According to the stats, he is my easiest opponent ever. I'm now 7-1 against him all time. But he did have a couple guys go off. Jared Goff obviously did decently well. DK Metcalf, Hayden, and Deebo Samuel both did all right. But yeah, Hayden Hurst, David Montgomery obviously got injured. Both pretty much ghosted them there.
Yeah, and to be fair to Carson, I think most of those wins came against Nolan, who did pass on this team to Carson. This may only be your second or third matchup against him. Also, this is the second week in a row, Nick, that Lamar has scored about half of your team's points. So I don't think you can count on that going forward.
It's okay. I'm making some changes in my lineup, and we'll be all good moving forward here.
Yeah, Khalil Herbert there is going to be nice. But I think this may actually be a good time to clarify for everyone. Was Drake London the best rookie wide receiver last week?
He was number 3. He did do pretty well. He got the win against the Seahawks, but Romeo Doubs getting the touchdown in the trash bowl down in Tampa last week, and then Chris Olave going off for 9 for 147 did kind of screw me there, unfortunately. I'm still very excited. Drake's going to be very, very good in this league, but it turns out some of the other rookies are as well.
Yeah, neither of those were names we brought up when we were talking about who could beat him. I think we were thinking about Garrett Wilson. We were thinking about Burks on the Titans and Dotson, but not those two surprised me actually. Yeah. And so that means that you are now 0-2 in our competition, which is a bit of a hole to come back from. You have what? 16, 15 more weeks to come back. So you got time, but things are not looking good. Now we have the garbage bowl here, which was as garbagey as we might have expected. John did come out in top 84-79. It was, I think, Nick's best week by far at 79 points. You can see Derek Carr was actually a good play. CeeDee Lamb actually figured things out, and that was the end of the story for him. My goodness. And then John's team was actually kind of consistently mediocre, which it's not going to get the job done a lot of weeks, but things got to be looking worse for his team, I think. And he had some big benches there. Cordero Patterson, for some reason, not in the lineup. Michael Pittman, for some reason, not in the lineup. Some of these other guys maybe you couldn't have anticipated, but yikes. Now, I'm seeing that Ducky somehow didn't play Devontae Smith or Chris Olave, and that would have made all the difference.
Yeah, Devontae Smith was the #1 wide receiver last week, and Chris Olave was #5. So that is a little unfortunate. CeeDee Lamb could have been up there as well, but he dropped a big touchdown pass from Cooper Rush.
And then our last matchup, why don't you break this down?
Yeah, the DC Redskins, Kyle Jelinek, going 3-0 against the now 2-1. Who needs an OC anyway? Matt Berluti. Joe Burrow finally is back on track. He got a win against the Jets. That's what they needed here. The rest of his team did all right. Justin Jefferson obviously laid a little bit of an egg, but yeah, no worries. He's obviously going to bounce back. Marquise Hollywood Brown blown up in the desert. James Robinson had a 50-yard touchdown run. That was pretty fun. Easy to beat the Chargers when he's playing that way. And Matt, with Justin Herbert, played through the game injured. Bless his soul there. Nick Chubb doing well on Thursday night. Cooper Kupp doing what he's going to do. It's probably one of the lowest scores he's going to get this year, 14 points. But looking on the bench, there's not any huge, mistakes. Obviously, the Packers defense did pretty well. Tom Brady threw a couple picks, and there were a couple fumbles there. But yeah, these two teams are obviously going to be still in contention for the next couple weeks at least here.
Yeah, this might be one of Matt's lower scores. It was actually a down week for a number of good teams here. A lot of 80s I'm seeing on the board. I just been a down fantasy week in general, some sloppy games in the NFL. Now, why don't you walk us through some of the news before we welcome our guest?
Yeah, so there's some big news. I'll start with something very exciting. Brian Robinson is eligible to return in week 5. The Washington running back that got shot in the leg. He probably isn't going to return that fast, but he is back at practice. He's not doing full pads yet, but it's always very exciting. Good news story to start off the news here. To some negatives, Rashawn Slater, one of the offensive linemen on the Chargers, I believe is out for the season now. We'll see how Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, all of them do with that. Joey Bosa, all on the Chargers, is on IR, so their defense might have gotten slightly worse. They still have Derwin James and Khalil Mack, obviously, but the Tua concussion protocol was obviously a big question this past week. He got hit in the head, fell back, hit his head in the ground, and came back in the game pretty quickly after. A lot of people are pretty upset that he did. Probably some Bills fans that are pretty upset about that, but seems like he's clear. It seems like he's good to go. I can't necessarily imagine that the Dolphins would have put him into danger if they didn't think he was 100% back here. But speaking of being 100% back, we'll see how Zach Wilson does this week against the Steelers. He's back. He is quote unquote healthy. Hide your moms. He's back to get him here. But the other big news is the Chiefs-Bucks game, Sunday Night Football, is on question right now if it's going to be played or not. There's obviously Hurricane Ian coming in, and if they are not able to play in Tampa Bay, they are able to play in the Dome in Minnesota, while the Vikings are in London facing the Saints and Traquan Smith here. So it'd be very exciting to watch that 9:30 a.m. Sunday game this week.
Yeah, set your lineup, people, the night before, because 9:30 a.m. is easy to forget about. And that can hurt when one of those players ends up on your bench or in your lineup when you want them to be. So very nice. And so now let's look ahead to the week with some celebration. But first, just as a preview, we will be having Ducky onto the show, and he'll be on in just a minute, but here we go. All right, so this week in the preview, we have Ducky on the show, like I said. We'll be talking about matchups of the week. We'll be breaking down the matchup between Nick and whoever he's playing. We'll be looking at the bargains of the week and the rip-offs on the waivers, and we'll look for the NFL before Caitlin's hot takes to wrap things up. So we will welcome Nick to the show in just a minute. So welcome to the show, Nick. I'll have you take a wild guess at what that song is called, Nick.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I'll have you take a wild guess at what that song is called.
The Quack?
It's called Fluffing a Duck.
Of course it is.
But anyways, so we invite you on the show today as the 12th place member of our league. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so-
Double digits. Not many people are in double digits.
There's only 3 of you, and you are the last of them. And so what we want to talk about first, I know you were away in Portugal, a little bit removed for the past couple of football weeks, but you have a matchup here against Matt, our 3rd place player, and your team is not getting a lot of check marks in the direct head-to-head player matchups down here. What's going on?
Well, you know, a lot of underperforming. You got some injuries. I've kind of my main starters aren't really starters in most teams, so that definitely adds a challenge to it. But I think the Olive Man's going to come through big this week. And really, that 12 points, I think it's actually going to be closer to 20, which is going to help make up that. As you can see, there's only about a 10-point difference here. Even though he's got a lot of checks, one guy goes big, and then next thing you know, this is a game.
That's true, and you got a couple of cues here. I know Alvin Kamara's been killing you with his injury. Devonta Smith and the Olive himself were both on your bench last week, which maybe was hard to predict those weeks, but now I think they're pretty bona fide starters at this point.
I was kind of on the fence with Devonta for a while. It seems like AJ Brown was the main guy there, so I was a little hesitant to play him yet. I was still hoping that Mooney was going to bounce back at some point, or at least Chicago was going to look like, maybe an NFL team rather than the Mansfield Hornets.
Yeah, yikes! That did not work out at all. I don't even know if he's on your roster, but he probably doesn't need to be. And it's hard to trust a guy when he gooses you week 1 like Devonta did. I think that's part of it. But you're in this week. We'll see. Matt did only score 86 points last week. You had your highest scoring week yet at almost 80 points. So if any of these people pan out to be real starters, you might be in for a maybe a loss by only by 20 to by 30.
I think that looking at the team on paper, I actually think this is a really good team, and they've just underperformed. And I was looking at I was trying to catch up on what had happened the past 2 weeks, this past Sunday, and it's just the NFL in general. I don't even know what's going on. Jacksonville's good. What's that? Philadelphia, it looks like a potential Super Bowl winners. Like last year, were they even 500? So it's like one of those things. It's like I don't even know, all these teams that Vegas is supposed to be like one of the top running teams in that division. They haven't even won a game. So
yeah, no, it's definitely some things are moving this year. I don't know why, but it seems like more than most years. Now, Snickers, who do you have as your matchup of the week?
My matchup of the week is the brothers of Carson Jelinek and Kyler Jelinek. Obviously, the Brother Bowl is obviously fun to watch every year. But yeah, Kyler presumably is the presumptive winner here, 3-0 versus 0-3 team. But I would like to pay some attention to the Lions. Jared Goff, their favorite again this week against the Seahawks at home. He obviously needs to take David Montgomery out of his lineup if he's watching this. But his running backs and receivers are all pretty A- level guys, and he drafted the best kicker in the league in the 10th round. So I think I'm kind of rooting for Carson here, but no, if I put my money on it, it'd be Kyler's obviously going to get the dub here.
I agree. Now, Ducky, what do you think about the you versus Kyleb season long? Is it going to be? Are either of you going to win a game, and who will come out on top?
I think if last year is any consolation, he did rob me of a complete and utter implosion that I had last year. I was, I believe, 6-0, or maybe it was 5-1 at one point, and then I did not win a game for the rest of the season. And Carson rather, did happen to squeak out right below me in 12th place. I'm not entirely sure how he managed that when I don't win for 7-8 straight weeks. So I think I'm going to have the edge on him again. I got the history of beating him in the past. I know how to avoid him. As for who's going to get the first win, I'm going to go with me. Again, looking at my team, I think I have potential talent. Looking at his team, though, Hayden Hurst as a tight end is kind of a little alarming. Mixon and Fournette have obviously underperformed, and San Fran, I don't even know what they're doing over there. So is Debo even going to be a starter for much longer? Who knows?
I think you might be. However, I think you probably are both not in the cards for you to win this week. My matchup this week actually includes our very own Snickers for the first time. We have a very tight matchup here between the 3-0 Fufu Cuddly Poops with Kyle and Snickers. Currently in 6th, but always, as we saw, has been on the podium every single time.
Except for 2016, yeah.
And so I think this is going to be a very entertaining one. Those are both very high projections. It looks like your lineups may already both be set. And yeah, I mean, the Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs thing seems very hard to beat, with Tyreek Hill also can be a dominant force whenever. But you do have Jonathan Taylor, could be doing better. He's running back 10 right now. He's going to end the season better than that. Khalil Herbert was a lucky to have on your bench. So that's going to support, I think, your biggest weakness, which was the running backs were not your strength there. Drake Glenn is turning into something. So this is going to be a close one. I think the projections might be right here. You might take Kyle out of the undefeated column.
Well, thank you.
And now, let's see what we have next. Let's look at some waivers. Now, Ducky, actually, we're very excited to have you on the show for this reason too. You've been very active in the waiver system and now have the least amount of money than anybody. It's not listed here, but I think Snickers was saying before the show that you just passed me for now having below $50. I have 57. You got a couple big ads this week. Tell us about it.
Well, when you go and have one specific week where I didn't even break, I think, 60 points, you really got to revamp the team. You got to be on the lookout for some potential booms on the waiver wire. Now, I didn't know when I had put the claim in. Last I had heard, Joe Mixon was unlikely to play tomorrow. Looks like that is incorrect now. So that 13 on P. Ryan is kind of not looking great anymore. And I looked at Zay Jones. I almost added him last week, actually, in a couple leagues, because I liked the way Jacksonville had been looking. I don't know if he's going to continue that tear that he's on. But with the revolving door of my wide receivers at this point, I mean, CeeDee Lamb seems to be coming alive. I mean, he was supposed to be good, and with the loss of Dak, that kind of hurts, but it seems like he's got some sort of connection with whoever their backup is right now. I don't even know their name. And then I also, I got Darren Mooney. I mean, he's soon for the waiver wire as it is. So I just wanted to add a little more depth in my running back and wide receiver. Obviously, P. Ryan did not pan out again. But yeah, I mean, there wasn't really much out there, so I wanted to grab it's kind of like what you were saying with on week 1 when you went all in on was it Wilson Jr.?
Yeah,
you go for gold, I mean, I last year I had Fab in my other league, and going into the finals, which I was in, I had $30 left over, and the guy that beat me had like $70 left over, but there was nothing there. So why save it? You get to the end, you're going to have extra, then you didn't do something right if you lost out on a big bid.
No, that's true. And I will say, I mean, getting these guys early is definitely way more valuable. The prices go down as the year goes on. You have to put yourself in a position, though, where if there's a huge running back pickup next week, you're not going to get them. And maybe I won't either. But I mean, Zay Jones, I think, was a good bid. You can see me and Kenny were both eyeing him too. Didn't expect wide receiver to go for that much, but he's been very promising this week. I heard he actually has the highest targets per route run of anybody in the league, more or less, which is apparently a very predictive stat people are paying attention to now. This other guy, Craig Reynolds, also attracted some interest from me and Matt. He's the 3rd string running back for Detroit. And I think people have just noticed they tend to use 2 running backs. I was desperately wanting just somebody to replace my Swift loss for the next 3 weeks, but apparently I underestimated how much people are going to be interested in a 3rd stringer.
I think Reynolds gives the benefit of catches, kind of like what Swift was, which is why I think he's even rated. Because Jamal Williams, I had him last year. I was hoping that there would be kind of a committee style in Detroit, which didn't really pan out. Williams just runs the ball. Like, they hand it off to him. He's not getting the check down. He's not getting the third down plays or anything like that. So I think that's what the thought that Matt was looking at with Reynolds was maybe he can get a couple touches out of that too. Receptions out of that, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jamal Williams does have 4 touchdowns already on the season. So we'll see if he's still the goal line back, if Craig Reynolds is able to do anything. But Craig Reynolds is the Hard Knocks darling. He was featured pretty heavily this year. Yeah, there's a couple pickups this week that I think were pretty much worth the money. We'll see how Samaje Perine fares. He obviously was trusted more at the last play of the Super Bowl than Joe Mixon, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and someone's finally going on Trevor Lawrence. It looks like a couple of random shining stars in the wide receiver world from last week. Greg Dortch, Isaiah McKenzie, and Mac Hollins. Everyone's hoping they repeat. I personally wasn't buying it on them, but maybe I'm missing out. We'll see. And then let's talk a little bit about real NFL this week. The matchup that I'm going to be watching this week, I picked the Jaguars versus Eagles, the Doug Peterson revenge game. It seems like he's maybe showing the Eagles that he wasn't the problem around there with turning this team around. And the Jaguars, like you were saying, Ducky, are going to be actually competitive this year. They seem to have a really easy division. Everyone else is a mess. Who knows? Maybe this is the Super Bowl preview.
Well, not even that the division's easy. It's just Trevor Lawrence actually looks like a quarterback, which I guess it helps when you don't have your head coach going around kicking people.
Yeah, the Myers was a mess.
Yeah.
Who do you have on your who are you watching this week, Nick?
I actually looking at Baltimore versus Buffalo. That looks like it's going to be a shootout. Both defenses are respected, but both offenses are not to be messed with. I think if you have either of those guys, now obviously Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are like shoo-ins for starting, like you'd never even considered benching them. But I think they're going to have monster weeks and they can carry. And when you were talking about Snickers versus Kyle, I think the X factor that Kyle has is that combo that you called out. Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs is going to be, I think they're going to have a big week this week. And I think that's going to be one of those, if you remember a couple years ago, Rams versus, was it Minnesota or something like that? It was like 55, or the Saints, Rams or Saints, 55-52 shootout. That was a fun game to watch. I think this is going to be a similar game.
Yeah, bench your defenses. How about you, Snickers?
Yeah, I'm looking at Thursday Night Football. Joe Burrow, Mr. Swag over there against Tua Tagovailoa, the Miami hero right now. The two of the better young quarterbacks, both in the 2020 draft class. Obviously, Mike McDaniel, the head coach of the Dolphins, all he's done so far is beat Bill Belichick, beat John Harbaugh, and then go in last week and get another W here. He gets Zach Taylor this week, which you can't really underestimate him. He obviously went to the Super Bowl last year, but I think the quarterback matchup is going to be very exciting. Obviously, Tyreek Hill's been chirping at Eli Apple a little bit in the week here, and we'll see how that matchup goes. Obviously, Tyreek Hill is a little bit better of a receiver than Eli Apple is at cornerback, but be a pretty exciting matchup, I think. Pretty high scoring.
Yeah, and there's a number of high-scoring ones. I think it's really divided this week between total dud games and then some really high-powered ones. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Ducky, on the show. We'll hopefully have you back with a very different record maybe later in the season.
Yeah, I'm thinking that at some point, if one of these guys, once I figure out the team, I think I'm going to turn it around. I got the talent on the team. It's like you said last week, Vonta Smith and the Olive Man kind of had big points on the bench. Once I figure out who's the real starters, I think I'm coming for first place. I'm coming for the trophy. I missed the playoffs once in the past like 6 years. Now, obviously, I haven't had the same record that Snickers had, but I'm trying not to start a losing record here.
Yeah, let's not forget the year that I won. I started the year 1-6, and I won every game after that.
Yeah, and then you beat me in the finals. I remember that.
Mm-hmm. So
it was salty.
So it's not too late for any of you 0-3s out there, not at all. But yes, thanks for joining us, Nick. We'll see you soon. All right, so we just have one segment left of the show today. It is my lovely wife, Caitlin, back for some more hot takes. We watched football together this weekend, despite just her best wishes. She happened to be sitting there, and she had some very interesting ideas for the NFL. So welcome in, Caitlin. Come on in. Very much, as we'll see in a moment. Caitlin was realizing she didn't quite understand the rules of the NFL as well as she was hoping, and you had an idea to remedy that for all of your fellow, what do you call them, sub-casuals?
Sub-casual viewers like me, people who only watch the game when someone else is watching it.
Yeah, and what would you propose to help them?
Well, I realized I didn't remember how many downs there were, because when I was a kid and we played backyard football a few times, there were like 5 downs to get across the whole thing. So I thought that's how many downs there were instead of like 4 downs for 10 yards. So it turns out I was very wrong. So I think if there were a song like "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" that could teach you the number of downs, just like they teach you the number of strikes, then everyone would know how many downs there were and everyone can enjoy football.
Yeah, no, and you thought maybe that maybe change the rules even to make that easier for people.
Oh yeah, I like Canadian football apparently uses 3 downs and they do like longer passes because of that. I support that.
Yeah, what do you think of that, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, obviously longer passes are always good. Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, guys like that are having career lows on their average passing distance. But Caitlin, I'm kind of interested in what a possible song might sound like about having.
So it is 1, 2, 3 downs per 10 yards at the old ball game.
Yeah, very derivative, I think. I don't know where you got the inspiration for that from, but I think it would be a mess. I think that it would be turnover central. 3 downs is just. I mean, as we see already, sometimes these games are pretty slow in the NFL, and I think they would just, one failed play and you're already in the doghouse basically because you had to kick it on the 3rd down.
I feel like more back and forth would be nice though, between switching sides and all that.
We'll see. Maybe I have never actually watched Canadian football. Have you, Nick?
I've watched a couple games for the Aeronauts are I think my team, but
Is it more stop go or less stop go? How would you describe it?
I think I've only watched the championship before, and I think it was pretty exciting. I might have been a little drunk while I was watching it, so I don't remember all the rules, but it's pretty fun.
I know they kick it a lot more. There's some weird thing with kicking, but that's as much as I know.
Yeah.
But anyways, there is our hot take of the week. A little hotter than last week, I would say. 3 downs per 10 yards.
And a song.
And a song.
And I didn't realize the Mississippis and backyard football didn't exist in real football. I thought there was some kind of time clock.
Yeah, another revelation. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us, Caitlin. And see us all next week. Take care.